And then there's the guys who will say, well, Rolo can't be married, he's red pill. And that's usually the traditional conservative guys who are who want to say, well, you know, you don't agree with marriage. Like I've come out very vocally against marriage on several occasions, and this is from a guy who has been in, you know, for the last 25 years what I think most men would consider a pretty ideal marriage. And when people get upset with me about saying that, you know, marriage is an unconscionable contract, or men have more maneuverability, they have more flexibility, they have more opportunities outside of marriage today than they do inside marriage, people just think I am anti-marriage. I am not. I would very much, I still 100%, maybe it's the old school in me, but I still 100% believe in the institution of marriage. And I would love for nothing better than for you and anyone else watching this. Yeah. If you're a guy, I would love for you to have what I have had for, you know, the last 25 years and really 26 and a half. But I would love for you to be able to have that, but I can't endorse that. I can't advocate for that right now, because the way we do marriage today is completely all downside risk for most guys at this point. So when you're talking to me about like, well, you know, I made out with 2 chicks and I got, you know, I'm on top of my game, I'm hitting my stride. I'm, you know, well, you're in your 40s, but let's just say, you know, 36, 38, somewhere around there. I am at the peak of my sexual selectivity right now, and I'm going to finally enjoy it because I had to eat shit from the time I was 20 or 18 in high school all the way up to where I'm at right now, because I had to come up. I had to pay my dues and to get to the point where I'm at right now. And you're telling me I've got to settle on one woman in a state of westernized marriage right now, where first of all, I can lose half of my stuff. And then second of all, it's like, why would I want to get into that situation when I'm finally hitting my stride? And a lot of guys, because it takes longer for them to mature into their peak potential, they don't see any point in saying, you know, the guys who are the highest value men out there, who have the money, who have the game, who have the muscles, who have all of those checkpoints off that women want to get with, the women that women are the men that women are complaining about that they can't find the right guy, you're the guy. Not the army of beta males that they like rejected all throughout their 20s. They're complaining about a guy who won't settle down. And now you're infantile, or you have a fragile ego, or you're threatened by strong women because you won't commit to her when you're finally at the position in your life at 36 where she was when she was 23 years old, and nobody gave her any kind of grief for it back then. So what you're up against, and what you're talking about as well, is when you get to that point, you have to decide what opportunities and what are the compromises and what are the sacrifices I'm willing to make as a man in my peak potential years. What compromises am I willing to make for a woman, for me to want to say, you know what, I'm going to give up all that opportunity for you? And is that woman going to appreciate that? Is she going to be, oh, well, thank you for doing that? Or is she going to be entitled to the fact that she believes that she belongs with a guy who's a high value guy as it is? And that's the paradox that's going. You want to know why the marriage rates are low? You want to know why, Morgan Stanley forecasted that by 2030, women in prime working demographic age, like was it 25 to 45, of that cohort, 42%, I believe, are going to be single and childless during that time by 2030. And that's how does that change a society? How does that change the United States? How does that change our Western way of life when we have this, you know, high demographic of women, with population of women who are not marrying, not having kids right now. There was just another article, I think it was in the UK, how women 30% of women after the age of 30 don't have kids, and they don't have any prospects to have kids. That does a number on women.
Do they want kids though?
But they do with you. They want kids with the guy who's the high value
they're
guy.
outside, buddy.
They want to with the guy who's
up.
So they're not going to settle, is what you're saying.
Who's of your characteristics. There's and I don't know, I should have called it up, but there's actually a calculator it's called like the female delusion calculator, and you type in, like, women say, okay, I want a guy who's 6 foot tall, I want a guy to make, you know, $100,000 a year, he's got to be available. There's all these little, you know, criteria, and it will show you what the percentage chance is, or what percentage of the population. That's it right there. What percentage of the population?
Female delusion.
You should type that in. Like, you should, go down there and do a quick. It's very easy. Go do a quick experiment. Should do one for him. Do it for his age. What's your age again?
41.
41. So let's get into 41. You are white, so we can put that in. How tall are you?
6 foot.
6 foot. Oh man. And minimum income, I presume you make six figures.
No, well over.
Correct?
Yeah.
Okay,
Just
so
say
it
250.
maxes out. It maxes out 100,000.
Okay.
Now find the probability of finding a guy like you is 0.13%.
What's
You can see
up?
Adam's
That's
ego
where
just
You're
Now,
1 in
Ego
1,000.
just went through
now
the roof.
before
I
anybody,
always say your ego's not your
You
ego.
just,
I'm gonna
Rolo,
have
you just ruined
Rolo,
everything.
you just
Chances just went lower of him getting
Just
married.
watch the
Now-
headphones
now-
expand.
Now,
in the
before,
text
before you
rows.
get too big ahead,
Yeah,
before
no,
people
no.
go, oh, I don't believe that. There, if you go and you look at how they rate this, these are all statistics that are available by Census Bureau data, by probably
Wait, Tyler,
CBC,
what
GSS
Tyler, go
studies.
back
car
down.
enthusiast. What was that?
Tyler, go back down. It said cat enthusiast. Please
No,
go back down.
Yeah, the
I
cat
think it said
enthusiast.
car
yes.
enthusiast.
No, cat enthusiast. Yeah, 4 out of 5. Yes. That's
How the hell did that happen?
Get out of here.
What
does that even mean?
That's the spinsterhood factor for
What
women.
is that?
Well, because that's if so.
Metro.
So if a,
That's for women or for men?
That's for women. There's
Okay.
another one for men as well.
Well, if they're
but
looking
there's-
for cats, I got you.
But so statistically speaking, like if women wanted a guy that is just like you are a representative of 0.13% of the U.S. population.
Game over. This is all we're going to hear all day today.
My confidence just went
Now-
through the roof
now
right
we
What are you
now.
talking about all day, all month,
Now,
Pat?
now, do you
enthusiast.
know why poly is popular? Now do you know why guys are holding like when you get to you're hitting your
So
stride.
what would you tell a guy, like if you're saying you are married, you're happily married, you want to have, like I'm telling you, I've lived in South Beach my whole life. You do not want to be the 60-year-old guy in the club. I know that. I've seen, like, I remember saying, I'm going to do well.
Most
I'm going
guys
to make
can't be
it.
that anyways.
I don't, like, there's no chance that I'm going to be 50 still out there in the club, a club space in Miami. It's not happening. Like, but what would you tell a guy? Because there's a lot of there's entrepreneurs here. People believe in capitalism. People with self-improvement. A lot of people watch this channel because they want to do better and they're thinking big. This is kind of what our brand is. What would you tell the person, whether they're 32, 35, 40, 45, whatever, and they haven't settled down yet? What advice do you have for them?
I'll tell you, I had this conversation with my friend Rich Cooper, and he asked me on his show one time, how did you vet for Mrs. Tomasi? And my answer was, I didn't vet her. I vetted myself first. I asked myself, the first question I said is, like when I was considering actually being married to anyone at that point, was, is this a person that I can be faithful to? Is this a person that I can, because I know what happens when a couple splits up. I know what happens to a family, to multiple families, to the children, to everything else that goes along in there. There's one of the, I think the unspoken importances of the red pill is that we don't, it will at least allow you to see like the ripple effect, the cascade effect. So what are your actions doing right now that are going to affect other people? And so when I was vetting my wife, I don't say even vetting, I had to vet myself. I said, can I be faithful to this woman? Because I know me, I've seen me do it, right? I've been the cheated on and I have been the cheater myself in my past, right? And so I don't want to open that can of worms if I can't be 100%. And the answer was yes, I could. And that was the first question I asked myself. And really, I think in your instance right now, what opportunities are you willing to sacrifice? What are you willing to compromise right now? Are you willing to compromise making out with 2 girls on the beach, right? Are you willing to compromise the opportunities? It's like opportunity. There you go. Right here. Here you go. Pros and cons. Pros and cons.
Sign right here.
Right, buddy.
What are you willing to sacrifice, and what's a deal breaker and what's not a deal breaker? And then what you have to do is, once you have decided what that is, you have to set that against the girls that you think that are good candidates for a long-term relationship. That's very difficult for guys to do right now.
Well, what is the biggest fear in somebody in his situation? Is it just I have to be with one for the rest of my life? I can't party anymore. I have
That's
to give
half
up
of
some
it.
of my freedom. What else is it? Why would somebody say?
Opportunity cost for sure. Like what are the opportunities that even myself, I'll take myself as an example too. I've been married for 25 years. What opportunities have I missed out? And not just sexual opportunities. I mean like business opportunities or job opportunities or relocation opportunities or family or whatever else that maybe I wanted to do that I could not do as a result of having a relationship with, being in a marriage, having a kid, having my dogs, whatever else. All of that stuff, all the responsibilities that we say is, men need to take on responsibilities. Well, those responsibilities come at a cost, and that cost is generally scaled out at whatever those opportunities were that you could have invested yourself into had you not been single or had you not been married at that time. You would not be who you are right now at 42 with the money you have and being certainly 0.13% of the population had you made a different decision when you were 28, 30 years old when I got married, right? I'm a different person as a result of that. It's life choices, it's lifestyle decisions, but most guys don't make those decisions based on educated assumptions. So right now you have a life of learned experiences that you can kind of reflect back on. You're probably a better judge of character. Men, what's the joke? Men don't become men until they're 30 years old. And so the reason why I say don't consider monogamy until you're 30, or you certainly don't even consider marriage if you're going to consider marriage until you get to be about 34, 35 years old, is because you're at that point where you're finally hitting your stride and you're a better judge of character and you're better able to make that estimate, that evaluation between what are the opportunities I'm going to miss and what are the benefits of me, settling down with a woman for a very long time and making things work out.
What'd you call that earlier? Frame?
That's definitely your frame. You have to have the frame, by the way, is the world into which you enter or she enters. And you right now have a world that certainly a lot of women would like to enter into. And so you have to
can't come in.
Well, and then you also have to make sure that you have to keep that in mind when you're making the decision, is this someone that I can be faithful to?
You said that was the first question that you asked yourself when you were going to settle down.
Yes.
Why was that the first question? Was that the most
well, because
important thing?
like I said, I know me. Definitely it is, because it is. I think a lot of people underappreciate the effect of genuine desire, and genuine desire is like unmitigated, like in a sexual sense, it's unmitigated, lust. Like there's a qualifiable difference between a man where a woman says, I want to have kids. It's time for me to have kids. My biological clock is ticking. And that woman says, I want to have his babies. I want to have that guy's family. I basically want to, reproduce with that guy. There's a big difference between those two statements.
And has it been hard for you, being what you talk about and what you stand for, to be faithful?
No, because I was able to answer that question back then. Can I be faithful to her? And she was everything I was looking for. It still is everything I'm looking for.
He's about to get emotional.
Yeah.
No, Adam will cry.
I'm saying that's when you're 28. That's okay. I'll be faithful.
Well, I've had a different experience.
We've seen the video of Urban Meyer, who's married and whatever, and now he's getting a lap dance at the bar from a girl in Jacksonville. And I'm not sure that I don't know what he did that was necessarily too wrong, but he wasn't necessarily faithful. But
well, there's a big...
what you say when you're 28 and what happens when you're 41 in a club.
Yeah, but Jordan Peterson, let me ask you a question. What did you think when Jordan Peterson said, divorce should be 100% out of the question?
Oh, that's right.
How do you process that? How do you process that?
Yeah, Jordan Peterson said that no matter how bad your marriage is, you should stay married for the sake of the kids. Essentially advocating for the nuclear family. Is that?
I agree,
is that
100%.
Okay. So even as miserable as you are, you're fighting, you're not having sex with you're not meant to be. At what point do you say, we tried, enough's enough? And at what age of the kids? Okay, at age...
Wait, ask him. Yeah. Do you think no matter what, you should stay married?
I think that if you, again, one of the reasons why I vetted myself before I vetted my wife was because of exactly that. Can I be faithful to this person? Because if I can't, then I should not be reproducing and starting a family and building this huge, world or my frame around all of this, if that one little point, if that one fundamental point can't be maintained. So yes, sex is the glue that holds relationships together. Sex is the glue that holds marriages together. And if that falls apart, you go look at the statistics for sexless marriages in the United States right now. It's like something like at least 20%. And a sexless marriage, by the way, is like 10 times a year. Right, like once a month, or and then skip 2 months. I think that's what the.
But you're saying you should stay married even if you're in a sexless relationship.
I think that once you're already in that, I think it's very important to, as far as raising the children, if you want to build strong families. Now, a lot of people will disagree with me on that because they'll say, well, I'm not getting what I need out of the relationship, and it's usually the woman that is saying that. It's not so much the man. The men will put up and tolerate way more than women will when it comes to like a bad marriage, because they have more to lose. Women are more incentivized, financially incentivized to file for divorce. This is one of the reasons why 70% of divorces are initiated by women. Then you get like social narratives like what we call divorce porn, which is like eat, pray, love, right? Or Stella got her groove back, or just divorce him, girl. He's not the one for you. He was never your soulmate. You need to go run off to Jamaica and have a good time and find your soulmate there after you divorce him.
It's a pretty good movie, but that's about it.
It's divorce porn.
Yeah.
It's a fantasy for women who get to the point where They settled on a guy who was not the one, was not their soulmate. The one that got away was the guy in their college days. And they get, you want to know why they call it the 7-year itch? It's because it's usually right around 7 years that women have that, they decide, is he the best that I can do? And more, certainly since the 70s, women, the answer to that is no. And to the point where we can go build, very, profitable franchises and romance novels and narratives. Go look at anything like Netflix is chock full of those narratives.
Or 50 Shades of Grey, when that was like the biggest thing on the planet.
50 Shades of Grey, by the way. Remember, 50 Shades of Grey was self-published. It was not like promoted out there.
Errors in the book.
Yes, and it sold 65 million copies in the first year that it was out.
What do you mean, few errors in the book?
It was self-published. The guy had who's, lose, like spelling errors.
It was basically fan fiction, but it was just rewritten by E.L. something, or I can't remember her last name.
50-some-year-old, was she late 40? I don't know how old she was, but she was an old.
But hit on a very popular narrative because it's that
fantasy.
It's the fantasy of. It's a fantasy with a lot of commonalities in it as well. But you have to look at the popularity of that. I mean, I remember we talk about church. I remember church women going, "Have you read 50 Shades of Grey? I can't wait till the movie comes out." And it was all good in the hood to be reading this.
The movie sucked, but the soundtrack was good.
And you know what pastors of the era did? You know what religious guys of the era did? They said, "Oh, it's a failure of men." It's a failure of men that we've allowed this to happen with women, or we can't measure up to that.